one, go. Okay. Yeah. Odd God, episode 3, Challengers. Nice.
Realizing I could have just gotten that one.
It's there.
Yeah. Good job.
New setup, guys. It's still my room. It's still the same bed, but new top cover, new plushies. We got the IKEA alien. Knuckles has been here, but not on the bed. We got some new clowns that I got for my birthday, which was recently. My friend gave me these because it's a reference to my other channel, Odd Clown, but yeah. How's everybody doing? We haven't been here in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel.
You're kind of busy. End of the year.
Yeah, finals was disgusting.
Yeah.
But
we
made it. We did it. They're graduating. Ah! And that means they're moving to LA. Ah!
Yeah.
Which means we're gonna have online podcast episodes. Ah! It's gonna be
good,
entertaining.
Though. Yeah, it's gonna be like what Dropout did during COVID, you know? With their little Zoom room stuff. I think it was Zoom. What was
Watch
it?
Dropout? Or wait.
Yeah. No, you knew that.
The one with Tara? Wait, what Dropout?
They just did a lot of stuff online. Where it's like they're
Are we
like,
talking about the same Dropouts podcast though? The one with Zach and Jared?
yes.
Okay.
Zach.
I don't know why I thought you were talking about someone else.
No.
Or a different Dropouts.
I think that's like the one and only.
I
Big,
know.
you know, independent,
I don't think I've ever watched
incredible comedy group.
No, they're great. I love clips. I don't think I've ever watched a full episode just cuz like,
well, my roommate has dropout.tv and it's great and everyone should get that. It's a monthly subscription. We're not sponsored. It's a monthly subscription, but it's nice. Especially their D&D shows are beloved
They do D&D
by the
stuff?
community. Yeah.
What?
Dimension 20?
What? I've only
What?
ever seen clips with Tara Yummy on TikTok, and that's it. All of my Dropouts podcast content is like, oh my god, Jared's so in love with Tara. Zach's so in love with Tara.
What?
That's like all the content that I get. And like obviously
you know,
just
like,
them being
Game
funny.
Changer and the others like Dirty Laundry and wow.
I have no idea what you're talking
We're gonna have some
about.
episodes on Dropout content. That's crazy. We're learning something new about each other.
I only get Tara Yummy clips because she's the one that like led me over to that.
That's like she's really not in there.
I know.
That's crazy.
She's on the main just like talking one. She's like a regular there now.
Is she now?
Yeah, I think she's
Okay, I don't really watch that, to be honest.
the newer version.
I've been watching more of their like shows, like their
they're like
yeah.
official main podcast. I think she's a regular guest
Wow.
speaker. She replaced Indiana, I think her name is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jared's ex.
Okay.
So.
Well.
Yeah.
Damn. Whoa. That's crazy. Dropout should hire me. Just throwing that out there.
I mean,
I would love to work for them.
how do you even apply for that?
They put out jobs. Hold on, let me think. If you go to their website, there's a page telling you how. I want to say they put them out on LinkedIn.
Because,
Yeah.
like, working for a YouTuber, like, obviously I want to be a YouTuber myself, but, like, working on a YouTuber set for, like, Dropouts or, like, offline TV or just, like, one of those houses, I think would be, like, so much fun. And I want to do it so bad. But I just, like, I don't know how you get that job. Even being an assistant for someone, like, I feel like that would be really fun. And I think it's, like, kind of lucrative. My only issue is that you can't really, like, go up from there, you know?
Still.
I mean, you could become your own content creator, but then you're, like, abandoning the person you're working for. I feel
Or
bad.
you have a partnership and a friendship and an allyship that you bring to the table for your own channel.
Yes. but also if you're running your own stuff, then you can't be an assistant for someone else as well.
They can find more talent. They got this. Yeah. Well, what are we talking about today, On? Not dropout and offline.
Today, we're talking about challengers. We're a couple weeks late. But yeah.
I only watched it like 3 days ago.
I watched it the week after it came out, 2 weeks after it came out, something like that.
Yeah.
I watched it with a couple of friends. We were foaming at the mouth for art for half of it. And other scenes were like, for the most part. We already texted a little bit about it, so we're going to recap those points, I think.
Yeah. I
think the consensus was that we understand why it was liked, but we personally didn't think that it was the best thing in the world. Mm-hmm. It implemented a lot of techniques like halfway into the show, like specifically the slow-mos. I remember like seeing the first slow-mo and I was like, that's weird. And then it kept doing slow-mo after slow-mo after slow-mo. And I'm like, why did you wait an hour and a half to start doing slow-mos? Like, it could have been a thing throughout the entire thing, but no. You started an hour and a half in.
There's a couple of things like that. So there's a couple of, like, fade-ins as transitions into scenes where, like, Zendaya's walking down a hallway and suddenly, like, she fades into the hallway and now she's there, but it was empty before, and stuff like that. That kind of appeared halfway through that just, because it wasn't there from the beginning, felt inconsistent. And there was enough of those pieces that I could tell they were trying to experiment with it and make it into, like, this stylistic movie. But there were so many things like that just popping in randomly that it didn't, I think, quite work together. There's also almost, like, glitches. I can't really describe it the way I think that would make sense to someone who hasn't seen it. There were, like, shots that were holding on that shot, maybe pushing in a little bit, and then suddenly it would jump, and so suddenly it's like, boom, and it's just like a little bit closer now. Or it's like, we've taken, like, milliseconds off of a shot, so it's just like the person now is a slightly different position. And it just, like, it jumps, and you're like, was that an editing mistake? Like, why did we just jump the camera in some weird, minuscule way that's, like, I don't know. There's just, like, a lot of, like, things that I think just kind of appeared, like, twice.
I'm not sure if I noticed that specifically, but I do understand what you're saying about, like, they were trying to be artsy, like, with the POV of the ball thing later and just stuff like that. It's like, I get it, it could have been cool, but, like, if you're going to do something and try to make it artsy, then have it in the first half as well.
Well, I think especially with, like, the final kind of round or match of tennis that they were playing, like, the very end, it was like every time we went back to the court, they couldn't trust that we were intrigued by the context we just received of their backstory. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, let's try this new, like, artsy technique with the camera. So suddenly the court, you know, we were shooting up through the court, or now we're the tennis ball, or whatever. And because it only happened, like, once, it was like, I'm just confused a little bit of what we're doing here, and it feels like we're trying to mask over the plot points and the drama that we just received the previous scene.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate on our own opinion right now, and I can't understand that maybe it's like they implemented it later because the suspense is more, because we've received information that's like, now it should be more suspenseful, so we're adding these things. But I think as filmmakers, it was more distracting than anything. Yeah. I think maybe if I just had the viewer mindset, then I think that it's fine, but I'm not entirely sure because I can't really think in that mindset for the most part.
I'm also sure, like, the tennis ball point of view shot specifically, like, that's supposed to be, like, it's supposed to be you don't know what's happening, right? You're supposed to be, like, riled up and confused and, like...
Yeah.
I do understand that. I just don't think it really worked out in practice.
Yeah.
I think, especially for the audience that I think, like, just Americans are, I feel like that is a shot that's going to just, like, upset people. It's confusing, and you haven't built up... I think what I'm trying to get to, I think, and I think you agree, is I don't think anything was built up into, like, those techniques and stuff. So, like, when we get into this shot, it's, like, I think that's just confusing and upsetting for a lot of people, and I don't think they understand that it's, like, increasing your anxiety on purpose.
Yeah.
And so it like that's just a shot that you don't think quite works with the American audience yet. And maybe like, you know, you just have to force that into movies and eventually they get it. But I don't think that's necessarily the best approach to introducing more artsy shots to like mainstream media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things with it too, and like it's just techniques that we've discussed in class of like keeping the audience in suspense for a certain amount of time. Mm-hmm. But it's like every time the main storyline or like current day would allude to something, they would immediately like show us the flashback of whatever they were talking about.
Yeah.
Which was kind of just like, if you're gonna show it to us immediately anyways, why not just have it in chronological order so we could like build the suspense that way instead of doing this like jumping back and forth, and having flashbacks inside of flashbacks was kind of confusing timeline wise, especially because it was like 12 years ago, 8 years ago. Like, is it
3 years later?
Yeah, like, is it 3 years later from the flashback time, or 3 years later from, or like specifically the 12 years ago? Like, if we're going to a 12 years ago flashback into a 2 years ago flashback, or 2 years earlier flashback, it's 2 years earlier from current time or from the flashback time? I don't know. It was kind of confusing. Obviously, you can use context clues to a certain extent, but it's still, like, aggravating.
Think, like, an easy solution to that would have been just putting the year, like 2003 or whatever. And it was either on screen or it was just on, like, the Stanford whatever, like, flag or something. But there was a shot that was, like, they're in college, and it's, like, 2002 or 2004 or something. So, like, I saw the year at one point, but, like, that year was so cementing to me. So, like, why wasn't the whole timeline just years?
Yeah, there was another year that it was, like, the 2008 Chicago Internationals or something.
Or the Atlantic.
Something like that, but I remember 2008, I think, but it was, like, the thing is... I agree with you. The thing is that they didn't use years every single time, and I understand that it's like, oh, multiple things might have happened in the same year, but it's like if you just add a little bit more to the title, you know.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think maybe this is getting us into actually the meat of what we were talking about before the podcast. But I think there's a foundation for the story with kind of the timeline that they're doing with this match versus all of these flashbacks, but I don't think it quite worked, and I'm trying to work through why in my head I think that, but it's a little bit confusing. It feels a little bit like shaky in a way, like I just don't fully believe it, and I know that movie wouldn't have been made without all of those time jumps. Like, that was a selling point for the movie, I'm sure. Because it does increase, you know, suspense. It does kind of keep things interesting in a way. But I think there is a question of, like, would it have been better if it was chronological? And are there ways that the jumping itself could have been better?
Yeah. And the other thing is like, with the flashbacks, the only reason that they're really added is so that the audience has some type of, like, truth of what is going on, because you want the audience to have the facts of the story. But I think that it could have been more engaging. It would have been frustrating, but it could have been, like, more engaging and more, like, suspenseful if it didn't have some of the flashbacks, specifically the fucking garbage flying around flashback where we see Zendaya cheat. Like, if we didn't know that and we just saw him do the ball touch at the end of the story, I think that would have been so much more impactful. And I liked the ending, for the most part, like, the very end that it cuts at that part. I did feel a little blue-balled. I wanted to see more.
I think they cut on the wrong second, like, because Zendaya's the final shot, right? It's of her face.
I don't remember.
I think, like, it cut at a weird moment, and it should have cut, like, a second and a half earlier than it did. Because it just ended on a weird final shot. It wasn't quite, like, Butch Cassidy, I feel like, has, like, a good final shot. Like, there's a couple of films that have done this with their final shots. Mm-hmm. I feel like it was, like, slightly off. Random bit. Doesn't really matter. But, I mean, I was going to say, I do like that we... I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but we're essentially being edged with the final, like, the racket. So, I think that maybe is something we disagree on a little bit, because I actually like that we know, and it's kind of like, oh, is it going to happen? Is he going to tell them? And I think he's playing around in his head for a long time. Like, should I say this? Should I not?
Oh,
and then he finally does. And I appreciate that. But yeah, I think there's a couple of moments that the film kind of does that, where it's like, oh, well, she didn't cheat, and then we cut back to the flashback a couple scenes later, and she did cheat, and et cetera, so.
I mean, Zendaya's, like, her decisions throughout the entire thing just irked me to an extent anyways. She should have been with Art at the beginning. That's all. That.
Well, it was weird, because it was, like, obvious that she had wanted to be with Art, but then she
or that she wanted them
word.
to be together.
I think she wanted them to be together more than anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then every time that, like, they had callbacks in the dialogue, there was a couple times where it's like, oh, I was a homer. Actually, I guess it happens in the same conversation. But she's like, well, do you still love me? I guess I was a homewrecker. And there's some other line that's a callback in that conversation where they're at, like, what is it, Chili's or something? Applebee's, I think. And that just, I don't know. It didn't quite work for me, but I think, like, the whole, I guess that's the conflict, right? Like, she goes from Patrick to Art, but, like, it felt like from the very beginning that she was into Art more.
Yeah.
And it, like,
at least Art was into her more.
Art was into her a lot,
like,
and Patrick
Art wanted
was being
her
a little
for,
playboy.
like, genuine reasons.
Yeah.
And
But I don't know.
Yeah.
It felt like there was, like, some sort of, it wasn't equal standing. It was always, like, this weird, everyone's on this different kind of level with each other. Mm-hmm. Which, drama, tension, conflict, whatever. But I guess I didn't really understand Zendaya's decisions for most of the movie. Almost everything she decided I was confused by. And even, for instance, when Patrick shows up and Tashi's like, no, get away, like, stay away from my family. And I'm just like, well, that seems different than what I thought you were going to do.
But then we realized that she did that because they cheated at Chicago.
Yes. Yeah, and I know that that's brought up later. But, I don't know, I think a lot of her things are very, very extreme choices, and it's, I believe, the foundation of her character, but not, like, everything that she ends up doing.
And the fact that Art knew that she cheated back then, too, and then they still had a kid together.
Oh, I kind of believe that, though. I think Art's character is very believable.
I know, but it just makes me sad. I feel for him so bad. He's just he's so cute and sad and like a kicked puppy.
It also seems like he likes their daughter a lot more than Zendaya does.
Yeah.
She's really made out to be kind of, like, evil. Like, it's, like, I don't know how to describe her character.
She only cares about tennis. She cares about tennis and skill.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the transition between, like, caring about an inanimate thing reflecting on how you treat people. I don't like.
Well, I think what I didn't like is that it became, like, her sexuality. And that felt like we were getting into something not quite real. So I think a lot of her stuff foundationally makes sense. Like, she grew up poor, and tennis was her way out, and she really liked it. She was really good at it. She got injured. She couldn't do it anymore. She's living through her husband. Like, I'm getting all of that. That all makes sense. I get why, maybe she doesn't really have much time for her kid because she's so obsessed with tennis and with achieving this, and she doesn't want Art to give it up because she had to give it up, and etc. Like, I'm getting all of that, but, like, certain things become so extreme where she's like, I don't know, like, I think it was kind of like the cheating with Patrick the time we saw it, like, in the car with the wind.
The wind was so obnoxious. I'm sorry, the trash was so obnoxious.
But some of the things she also said to Art, I was just like, that's, like, really intense, like, that's, like, extreme, like, I don't know, it felt, like, really, like, we're not letting this character have anything else. Like, her one characteristic is, like, she likes tennis, and she didn't get to do it herself.
Yeah.
And that's just really intense for me.
I can't understand the sexuality part, though. Because just, like, being attracted to, like, people that are good at something that you enjoy, I can understand. I don't think I agree with the cheating part, but, like, just the getting with whoever is good at it part I can get. That makes sense to me. But the cheating was just so obnoxious and annoying. And it seemed like there wasn't really a purpose for it, except for just, like, we wanted to show or the people wanted to show that Patrick, like, still got game, even though he's, like, the loser of the two right now. Like, even though he didn't win the war, he's still winning the battles, question mark.
Well, what I liked about the movie, and it's something I, like, actively thought as I was watching it, is that they're playing with the idea of, like, you never know what's going to happen next. Like, the tables can be churned, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, if we are saying that it's kind of Patrick versus Art for Zendaya's love, her character's love, they are constantly, you know, doing better than the other in different ways. And I do appreciate that it's kind of like you said, like, you're never out. And I think they even say it in the movie, but they're talking about how, like, Patrick has a bad, like, second round and stuff like that in tennis. And they're talking about, like, you know, when they're better, when they're worse, and it's being reflected in the final match. But
then also the final match, like, I thought the reason he was doing worse, like, he could have genuinely been doing worse because he did break his racket, but I thought part of that was because we saw that the car flashback where she, like, asked him to let Art win.
I don't know. Do we know? Was he gonna let it happen? Was he not? I think he was debating the whole time, and I do appreciate that. I like that that's what I got, is, like, he was thinking through it the whole time. I also really like when Art said in the sauna, like, oh, well, this is higher stakes for you than me, not knowing some of the things that are happening with his wife and Patrick. But, like, you know, we discover right after that conversation that Tashi has said, like, I'm going to get a divorce if you don't win this match. As maybe being serious, maybe not. I think she ends up feeling guilty about saying that. But, like, you know, having him say that to Patrick and being like, well, your stakes are higher, and you know, Art not even knowing Patrick's stakes fully, and then Art's now being revealed that, like, he's gonna get a divorce if he doesn't win this, and that's pretty high stakes, right? If they're fighting over this girl their entire lives, like, I don't know, I think that's very interesting that it's, like, this idea of, like, your luck can change at any moment, like, everything's shifting constantly. They are lying to each other in a way, and they all know a lot of things but not saying it. Like, that's all very interesting, and I think that's what the movie did really well.
I think this movie is a good example of if polyamorous couples were societally accepted, this would be a great throuple.
No, I was like, what? Like, could we just say, like, Uncle Patrick's living with us now? Like, can we just...
Is it really that hard? Like, they used to be best friends, and then everything
They used to live together in a boarding school for, like, a dozen years,
yeah,
right?
like, why? It's so sad. It's so sad. And then also just, like, I don't know. Because there's this one TikTok throuple, which is 2 men and a woman, and, like, every girl in the comments is just like, is it just so bad that I want a boyfriend who also has a little boyfriend and I can see them do boyfriend things? And I'm like, just like, I just question it sometimes. I agree for the most part. My ideal, I don't actually know if I'd go through with this, but, like, there was this one polyamorous couple that I saw on TikTok when I was, like, 13, and I was like, this is perfect. 2 men, 2 women, all bi, all love each other. That's, like, ideal in so many ways, I feel like. Maybe I'm insane. I don't know. Maybe I'm insane.
I'm a webtoon connoisseur, and there is a webtoon called Boyfriends that just finished, or at least finished a season, I don't remember, but some people hate on it on the internet, some people love it. Is it the
one with Prep Jock?
Yes, it is. They all have names, too.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I liked it for a while, and then it got animated, and then they got really bad VAs that were really cringe, and I just...
Well, I'm talking about the webtoon. I'm talking about the little comic.
A lot of people hate on it, and I can completely understand why they hate on it, but I did enjoy it for a little while. I think some of it is
also just hating on queer people and poly people. Like, to be honest, I think some of it maybe is valid. I think some of it is trying to kind of tear down something.
I think my thing is I just didn't like the stereotypes of them to an extent. I wish they were kind of just, like, normal people, and I understand that those people are normal people, like, people in those archetypes exist, but I think the amount that it was played into, it was like they had no other personality traits, and that pissed me off a teensy bit.
Sure. What I was gonna bring up from all of this is that they're just all gay.
Yeah.
They're just, you know...
they're all queer people!
They're all queer people. And suddenly it feels, fine because they all love each other. That's kind of their bit. Is they're like two relationships that became one big relationship, and I think that like made sense in that story. You know.
There is something that I heard about. Not entirely sure how true it is, but I think one of the reasons why there wasn't a gay, like a solely gay scene in Challengers is because one of the actors, I think it's the actor for Patrick, is actually bi/gay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure about that, and he refuses to do gay scenes on camera.
Oh, interesting.
This is something that I heard word of mouth like a month ago, like the first week it came out, so I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong, but I remember somebody telling me that. And I thought that was really interesting because if the actor did agree to it, how much would the story have changed from that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Might need to check my sources, but...
Because I think that also is talking about, like, agency for the actors, and especially for queer actors and queer storylines, I think that really does matter to listen to them. It's kind of like how, why am I blanking on his name? He has a book I was reading, and I think I talked to you about. Umbrella Academy.
Gerard Way?
No, the actor, the trans actor. Elliot Page.
Yes.
Yes. I was going to say, he had agency, right? Because he actually came out publicly as trans, and, you know, it's something that, like, in his book, he talks about, like, struggling with having that be public information for a really long time and how that's going to affect his acting career. And he had people tell him, like, it's going to destroy your acting career. But he came out publicly, and the show he was working on, like, worked with him, and his character...
Because Gerard Way's the GOAT.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he actually had to do with that.
His character is now a trans man, and I think that that's really interesting because that's not in the comic that it's being adapted from. And so, you know, having that there...
I don't feel like his gender identity matters a lot storyline-wise. No. I think that the transition made a lot of sense and was really good, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they, like, knew and talked about it during the second season before he officially transitioned, because the entire... If I'm remembering correctly, the entire premise of the second season is basically he, like, falls in love with a woman and they, like... care for a child together.
Yeah,
and so then they're trans and then it's head cop.
Yeah. And yeah, no, I think a lot of people were also really upset because they were like, well, now we're moving from like a lesbian to a trans man thing, and I'm like, okay, well, I feel like this is a trans man.
It's still a queer person loving a woman, so I'm not mad.
Yeah, I was like, it's, you know, trans man, bro, like it's
still in the umbrella. I understand your obsession, your upsetness.
Here's my thing. What people are saying is that you're taking away from one underrepresented group to go into another underrepresented group. And what I'm saying is maybe we should have just more of that in general. And I don't even think it's taking away, because I think also the storyline, well, it was shown, but more importantly, the storyline still fits the trans man storyline. There are plenty of trans men who love women, and like that fits that character. That is that character. And going back to my earlier point, I just think that that's really empowering that was a mainstream show that was doing well, that listened to their actor, and the actor had agency about how they were showing up on screen because of their own personal life. And I think that's really empowering. So props to the show, props to Elliot for coming out and having the courage to do that. But if that's true about Patrick's actor, then, like, once again, like, props. Like, I totally get that.
Yeah. And I don't think it's anything he directly said, but I can understand the POV of, like, you don't want that on screen because it's your own personal life, but also specifically because in the story it would be sex. It would have, like, the romantic undertones.
It's realistic.
Yeah, it would be, like, kind of fetishizing, like, gay men, which is done enough already.
Well, I was gonna say, that's why, like, Zendaya's characters seem so evil to me, because it's like that one shot where she's finally got them to make out in front of her, and she's about to get up off the bed, and she's just, like, has this, like, glare in her eyes. It's just, like, so, like, I've done it, and I'm just like, wow, we're really, like, we've really, I don't know, like, it was very interesting, because it definitely felt like, being queer is taboo, and I know that, like, taboo can increase, like, interest, but, like, it was done in a way that made me feel a little gross. It was gross watching it, and it was gross being in her perspective during it, and I think that was intentional, because we're kind of supposed to not like her character. But, like, it was a lot of things there that I was like, whoa, wow, close up on her, and just really enjoying the power that she has over them, and, like, trying to force this, like, queer experience to happen, and letting her see it, and having it be done for her. Yeah. Like, it was very, like, I was like, wow. And I think that was, like, kind of why I brought up her sexuality before, because it's very much so, like, I want you to fight over me, and I want you to, like, I want to have complete control over you. It's brought up with her coaching, and ending up coaching Art, and that's why she chooses him, and etc. And, like, there's just a lot of power plays that are being done.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the other thing that I can understand that's upsetting from, like, a man's point of view is, like, the fact that you're not allowed to have a close guy friend without it being seen as, like, something more.
Yeah.
I did see it as something more in this movie, so I can't, like, I am a hypocrite in that sense, but I can understand how that's upsetting, and it's...
So I was gonna say, one of the best parts of the movie is every time Patrick and Art interact, and they're, like, running around with each other, or they, like, hit each other, or they, like, you know, like, when they're just, like, goofing off, like, like fucking teenage boys, but in, like, the better way, and not, like, a bad boys will be boys way.
Yeah.
But, like, when they're just goofing off together, it's, like,
that one scene,
it's so cute. It's just, like, I just feel like my heart's fulfilled, just, like, in a, like, wholesome way. You know what I mean?
That one scene when Patrick showed up to the college and ran, like,
yeah.
ran.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that the idea of, like, oh, two men can't be, like, like, they either can't be gay, or, like, if they're interacting in a media, they need to be gay. And I am a person that does ship men a lot in, like, anime and stuff. I ship them with women too. It's just whoever I think they have the most chemistry with. But this is leading me to something that I've been, like, upset about and talking about more recently. It's 2 points. And the first one is that guys and girls can't be friends. That's, like, a stigma that a lot of people have, which I have a large problem with because it's a very heterosexual point of view of, like...
Heteronormative, for sure.
Yeah, and it's, like, they can't be friends because they want to fuck each other. So, as a bi person, does that just mean that I want to fuck all of my friends? Mm-hmm. No. Maybe. But
I think it's something that a lot of, especially young queer people, are scared of when they tell their friends. Like, especially bi and pan people. It's like, well, I guess gay too, but, like, it's any queer person. They're like, oh, well, like, am I gonna lose my friends because is it gonna be like, I'm in the locker room and they think I'm looking at them and they think this and that, and it's just like, that's really sad that people have to go through that and be scared of losing all of their close relationships because those people are just scared and uncomfortable and whatever, and I don't know.
Yeah, but, like, the idea that, like, you can't be friends with the gender that you are sexually attracted to is just such a bad mindset and so annoying to me. And then that also leads to another thing, which it has less to do with it, but it is something that I've been mad about recently, which is the idea that, like, if you are dating someone and your partner asks you to block someone, that you should do it immediately.
Yeah, that's really unhealthy, I think.
It's really toxic and unhealthy, and a lot of people are like, oh, but it's so attractive when they, like, listen to me and, like, only care about me, and I get that. But there's this other side of, like, it's specifically when women are telling men, and this, because this is the point of view that I see on TikTok and stuff, it's when women are telling men, and someone's like, oh, my boyfriend didn't block this girl that I told him to block. And then the comments are filled with, like, you should break up with him, or it's like, he said, oh, but I've known her longer. Like, the excuse, I've known her longer, and people are, like, upset with that excuse. And I feel like that's a kind of valid, like, reasoning not to block someone, though. Yeah. Like, if I've been dating you for 2 years, but I've had this friend for 5 years, and you decide after 2 years that you just don't like them anymore, I feel like that's something that we should at least communicate first, and if we can set boundaries of, like, how I can interact with them, and then based on that, if I'm not listening to you and you're still uncomfortable with that, break up with me. You should not be with me if I'm not going to respect you and, like, your ideas. And I understand that what I'm saying right now can be also said to, you should just break up with this person, or, like, you should just block this person. And yes, I understand that I should be listening to my partner and, like, what their opinions, but also, like, it's something that you should talk about before just doing something blindly. I can't understand if it's just, like, this random Instagram model and you have no, like, relationship or, like, emotional investment in that person. Like, yeah, if you're not blocking them kind of off the bat, that's, like, maybe a little weird, or if you don't have, like, a good, valid reasoning that you're following them. But, like, if you do have a valid reasoning, then that should be something that you talk about healthily before you do stuff like that.
Well, here's my thing. It's, like, I think it's really controlling. I think it's really unhealthy. I think if you have concerns, it should be because, oh, she sent you a nude, he's asking for whatever, like, that's the concern. It's not just that you know this person and you're hanging out with this person, and I think that's why it can be unhealthy. There has to be, like, some additional evidence for, like, no, they're doing something malicious, or they're trying to have you cheat, or whatever, and that's why I'm upset, not just.
But what if it's just, like, a jealousy or an insecurity thing?
Then I think the person who's asking for you to stop hanging out needs to back down, and
I agree.
Like,
I agree.
You have trust issues, and you need to work on yourself, and either you trust your partner or you don't, and you need to figure that out now. Because if you're trying to isolate them, like, I think that's my thing. I hate relationships where there's, like, one or both of the people are trying to isolate their partner. That's unhealthy, and that's, I think, what we're getting at. Like, yeah.
And it's, like, the other thing of, like, if you are jealous or insecure or you have trust issues, that's another thing that you can communicate through boundaries. You tell them, like, hey, I've been cheated on before, so when you're hanging out with a girl one-on-one, like, let me know what you're doing. Maybe send pictures as updates. Like, it's just small things like that that can ease your own worry but not be, like, super controlling or possessive of your partner, and still let them live their own life. Because that's one of the things that I, like, realize that I hate in relationships is when my partner, I'm the only thing in their life, and, like, I'm the center of their universe. It's suffocating to me, and even in friendships when I feel that way, it's, like, very suffocating to me, and I feel like a responsibility for the person, and so I feel like I can't live my own life, or I can't do things without, like, talking to them, without feeling guilty that I'm not, like, entertaining them in some way, which is very unhealthy, so I stay away from this now.
Yeah. No, I think it's just, like, you gotta have conversations, and I don't know. I think asking to be introduced to people's friends is good. Like, you can be like, hey, if you want to hang out with this person, I would like to meet them. And then if it's, like, something weird's happening, something malicious is happening, that's, once again, like, the additional evidence where you're like, okay, we need to, like, talk about this. I don't think you should just be upset that you're not getting 24/7 attention from your partner.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, even if there's not evidence and you feel like a certain type of way, like, you think that they're cheating on you enough to, like, jump, or, like, this is affecting you emotionally for a long period of time, just end it. It's not worth it, especially if you think you're getting cheated on. Like, you might not have hard evidence, but, like, for example, if this guy is hanging out with this girl, like, 3 times a week one-on-one, and you think that there's something more, then, like, end it.
Feelings matter,
yeah, like, your own feelings matter, of course, and there's reasons why you're asking your partner to do these certain things, but you need to reflect deeper and, like, really determine why you're asking it, and what are the proper steps that you should do to proceed from it, because just asking them to block them isn't always the right answer, and it's not always going to work, and it'll cause more problems than, like, opening up about your own feelings and talking about how the situation is making you feel, because they care more about that than just being ordered what to do.
Yeah. And I think that's also the thing, is, like, if somebody cares, if your partner cares about you, they're going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And they're going to find a way that, they're going to at least try to find a way where you're both are comfortable with whatever conclusion you come to, right? A compromise. I don't know. I think, going back to the movie, that is kind of a lot of the focus of the movie, too, is, like, attention. I think Tashi very much likes attention, very likes being the center of attention. Doesn't like to say it, but, like, definitely wants it. And that is kind of where, like, the movie is centered on, right? Like, she wants attention from these 2 guys that are really close with each other, and she wants to, like, break them up, but also have them become queer for her. And, like, she just really wants to have control and attention and etc. And I think that's something I do understand. Like I said, I think it's played into extremes with the character, but, like, that is the movie at its core. I don't know, what do you think? For a movie that really only features 3 characters, do you think it's interesting? Do you think it fills out its time?
I mean, I enjoyed watching it. I do think that part of the reason I enjoyed it more was because I was with my friends and because, like, I just talk throughout movies for the most part. Obviously there were things that upset me about it, but I think it was enjoyable overall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd watch it again, like, soon.
Yeah. I will say, because you mentioned it, I went and I watched it with my boyfriend, and there's a couple of scenes, but, like, it doesn't really happen for the first half of the movie. It's more the second half. But whenever we're in the final match, they both grunt when they hit the ball. And it was really funny because it's like grunting, but it's also kind of like moaning. And then there's like one scene specifically where Art's like really loud, like, and then I know. And then eventually we bring Patrick, so they're both like, ooh, and we like lost it in the theater. We started burst out laughing. I was like, that has to have been the intention because it's just
so
really
hard to
intense.
take it seriously. Yeah, because it's like. There's this other show that I was watching recently that was, it's like when you have a fist fight with a person, it's like a conversation without talking. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's how it is with like one-on-one sports too.
I feel like that's Arcane.
No, it's this new anime called Windbreaker.
Okay.
Who I need to text someone about. It just reminded me. But, I don't know. They were actually talking during the fight as well. But it's like, it is this idea where like, Tashi also said this about tennis. Like, when you, like, you're in love with the person, you're, like...
Mm-hmm. You're in a relationship.
Yeah. And so they were having sex in that scene where they were moaning like that.
Well, right, because the whole point about, like, the ending, how we're trying to make it, like, feel conclusive, is that they have the volley back and forth, and it's, like, the final, it's, like, match point. It's a tiebreaker, right? And, like, it just continues. And it's like this, when we're finally done with all the point of view, like, tennis ball shots and the mirror and the whatever, like, you know, the crazy technical shots that we're doing with this match, we finally have this one shot that's, like, pushing in on Zendaya across the court. And you see the ball going back and forth, and you're hearing all of their grunts and moans. And it's just like, it's a single shot, and it's just like slowly pushing in, and the ball is just going back and forth. And you can see that like something's changed, right? Like it's the whole relationship has finally been developed and understood, and they're working through it. And it becomes really great tennis. It's what she always wanted. She always wanted to see really great tennis between the two of them. They finally got it in this one final
And she
volley.
wasn't even really looking at it, too, because wasn't she staring straight ahead during that shot?
I don't remember.
I feel like she wasn't tracking the ball.
Like, that's what we were trying to get to. Is, like, all of this, like, weird, like, tension and anguish and frustration with each other, or whatever. Like, we finally, it's like all 3 of them know what's up. Especially the boys. And it's just, like, it's happening. And what I kind of am upset by is that, like, she's portrayed as such a terrible person. And she finally gets what she wants, because really what she wants, more than, like, saving her marriage, which I think she kind of wants a little bit, and more than the interest from Patrick, because she wants to feel like she's famous and valued and people like her and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like she wanted this really good tennis match, and she finally got it. And I do think that that's actually probably done well, even if I'm upset that the character feels fulfilled by getting her wish. But, like, that's essentially what she wanted the whole time, was, like, this volley. Back and forth.
So who's the main character?
I think it is... Okay, I'm really glad you said this, actually. Because I wrote an essay about this recently for a class.
Well, really quick, it's just like there's this mindset that there can only be one main character.
Yes, but I was going to say, I think it's Zendaya, but I think it's not. And I think specifically, I have this theory about recent movies that have come out with women of color that have been marketed as the main character and has been taken away the screen time and the dialogue and the whatever to feel like a main character once you're in the film. I think Holy Spider does this, I think Killers of the Flower Moon does this, and I think Challengers does this. So I would argue Holy Spider is a 2020 film about a female journalist in Iran who's like finding a serial killer who's been killing a bunch of prostitutes in a holy city. So, like, the kind of the religious, like...
I never saw any advertising for it.
Yeah. I was just saying, like, all of the officials, like, the religious officials are, like, letting him get away with it. So she's, like, stopping him herself. It's kind of, I would argue, a little bit of, like, trauma porn. That's kind of what I wrote about. It felt like it was kind of too much violence on her, and too much screen time for him. So the movie was marketed as her movie. And the serial killer gets over half of the screen time of his point of view. Which is like, okay. But I think that's, like, challenges. It's, like, it's marketed, I think, as, like, kind of Zendaya's movie. She's also a producer, right? Mm-hmm. The boys feel fairly equal-footed. She's just kind of the third party there. But, like, is she really the main character? Kind of not. It's kind of the boys. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about this when them two were making out and Zendaya was, like, leaning back and watching them. You were talking about, like, how she wants to be the center of attention and stuff. And the scene went on for a little bit. But the way that she interrupted it kind of made me think about, like, you saying the attention thing of she was like, okay, I like that they're doing this, but, like, I need them to stop and pay attention to me again. Because she was like, okay, that's enough. And then she walked between them and just out the door.
Yeah.
And left them there.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. I was like, yeah, it kind of just is, like, her wanting attention and only caring about herself.
Mm-hmm.
Narcissism.
And I think that it's interesting because I think she said it herself. She's like, you know, I grew up poor and I grew up wherever, and I don't remember where she said, but she was like, oh, do I need to, like, baby my little white boys and, you know, like, all of this. And she's talking about kind of, like, class and race and stuff a little bit. So you can argue, like, her need for control, like, that probably comes from something in her background that we don't see. But, I mean, I think it's intensified by, like, a true, like, narcissism in that character. Like, I think, like, maybe it was introduced through something in her background, but, like, it was really, like, it's her. Like, that's the thing they died. I don't know. I both like it, and I both feel like it's very one-dimensional for her character. Because I feel like I said, everything's so extreme with her character, but it does work. Like, the character makes sense to me. It just gets taken to an extreme. So, I don't know. Like, do you think her narcissism, like, it makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, if I was Zendaya, I would be narcissistic, too. I think for her, I think that her drive makes sense in the fact that that's all she cares about. Again, this brings me back to, like, I don't like how that sometimes makes you treat people.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you, like, value the person that is doing the thing less rather than, like,
you value the action or the sport more than the person doing the sport. Mm-hmm. And that is not the best mindset to have because it's kind of just, like, objectifying the person and merging it with whatever you, like, see them and like them doing, which is toxic, but I don't know.
Do you think that's, like, the message? You're not supposed to like her. Like, it's not like they're wanting you to like her, so...
The message is that she was objectifying them?
Well, I mean, like, it's just kind of, like... What would the story be? The thematic... Whatever this story... It's some version of, like... Power corrupts and, you know, like, fame. Like, trying to achieve something can destroy all your relationship and, like... What's really important in life? Having your friend and maybe having a girlfriend, is that more important than winning the U.S. Open and etc.?
Yeah.
So it's like...
And living your life through other people is not a good idea.
Right,
either.
right.
That wasn't really put very eloquently, but...
Well, it's kind of like, how do you value other people? And which I think goes back to your point of, like, she doesn't value other people.
Yeah. She
So...
values what they can do for her and what they can... Just, like, what they're capable of.
Hence why she doesn't really give a shit about her kid.
Until they turn, like, 15 and can start being really good at sports.
Yes.
Yay.
And then it's a little mini her. But, no, I think that's why she kind of just doesn't really seem to care about her younger daughter. Because she's, like, very young. I can't tell ages. She would be, like, 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
So... She's just kind of existing for the next few years.
Some people have kids just to have mini them.
It's
and
true.
to a lot of parents live through their children as well. They're like, oh, I had you and couldn't do like this, and this, and I made all these sacrifices to have you, so now you have to fulfill my dreams and like achieve all of these great things for me in place of me. And that's just like a lot of pressure, and it's definitely what she was doing to Art too.
Yeah.
In a different way.
And so I think it's interesting that Patrick calls her out on it. I also think Patrick's character gets weirdly aggressive, and I think that's the extreme for his character. Like I said, I think Art's the only one that's like truly believable to me. Like 100%, no, nothing he does is like confusing.
But that's because he's submissive. He's so submissive, and that's why
readable.
Yeah, that's why it's easy to understand.
Yeah, but I think like I will say, at least to Patrick's credit, like he's kind of right with the stuff that he calls out Tashi on.
Yeah,
for the most part, like he wasn't looking for a coach, and that is what she needed, and that control, and you know he is the only one willing to call it out. I don't know. I don't really like his character either, in the sense of like.
Then did she?
He's a bad person.
Then she chose Art because she could control him.
Yeah, like that's the answer, and that's why she's still interested in Patrick and cheats with Patrick, is because that's exciting and taboo, and she's getting the pushback. And he said before, he's like, "Are you trying to fight with me just so you can have a good match? Like, are you trying to get the energy rolling? Like." And she was like, no, and then he leaves and whatever. But, like, the answer is that, like, she does like the fight. She does like the pushback. It's something that she's trying to dominate in some way. And
she's a brat tamer.
Yes.
Patrick is a brat.
Yeah. Yes. Which, power to her, except for the fact that she's, like, shown as a bad person. So, you know.
And then Art and her is, like, a slave-master dynamic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
BDSM.
That's why he has all the scars on him. It's definitely not athletic injuries in any way. It's her.
That was great. Anyways. Challengers, yay! Rating out of 10.
Yeah.
Or 5.
I don't know. Because I feel like I'm gonna get pushback for this. I was gonna say, I think it's a movie. That movies. Do I personally like it? No.
Well, we can do categories.
Well, I was about to give it like a 6.5.
Okay.
6.
I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
So that would be an 8 out of 10. Well, we could break it down. Let's break it down. Overwatch reference. Own enjoyment out of 10.
Own enjoyment.
Like, how much did you enjoy watching it? And then liking it will be a different thing.
Yeah.
My enjoyment factor of it was about a 9 because I was like tweaking with my friends. I was like, ah! When Art was on screen.
Yeah, I guess I'd say like a 7.
Okay.
And
how
then
much
liked it.
did you like it after the
6.
fact? Mine was
Yeah.
also probably like a 6 or a 7.
Yeah.
And then artistically, cinematically.
Well, this is where it's interesting because it's trying to do a lot of things, and I think that's totally okay to try it. I don't think it
It's okay
brings
to try
it together.
It's okay to try it in the editing room, and then before you bring it to theaters, have it nailed down, guys.
Yeah, so I'd say, like, I kind of want to give it points for trying, and I also want to take away points for not achieving certain things. So it's kind of like a 5 to me.
I was gonna say 6.
Yeah.
I'm a nice rater. I can't do low scores. I feel bad.
I think what it is it's a movie I could watch one time and be like, wow. Wow. And then I don't really, like, I don't really want to see it again.
I mean, I want to see it again now just because, like, it's been a month for me, and I want to notice some of the things that you were talking about and maybe, like, recap some of my own opinions.
Weird shots happening here that kind of felt wrong. I was going to say, no, I'm not going to get into it, actually. There's just some shots, even beyond, like, the artistic shots that just seemed like the camera person didn't quite get there fast enough, or they kind of like tripped a little and the camera jerked a little to the left temporarily, and like, I don't know, some moments were some of the scenes were very fast with the camera, and I don't know if I thought those were shots that deserved to make it into the final cut.
I mean, it might have been intentional. My thing is...
Yeah, it probably was.
My thing is that I think that because I watched it late, it was very overhyped by social media.
Yeah.
And that's because the people that I was seeing comment on it are mostly just, like, film watchers. And I think that's, like, that's the line where it's hard to differentiate the identity of, like, filmmaker and film enjoyer, if that makes sense. And I think that if a movie is, like, taking me out of it enough to be, like, questioning shots and stuff, it's not doing that good of a job. Because, like, if I'm in it, I'm in it for the most part.
I mean, a lot of editors would tell you that if you are conscious enough to be saying things about specific shots, that they failed in the edit because it broke the flow, and the fact that you can see it and know that it's, like, a product and not just be in the story, like, they haven't done their job right as an editor. Yeah.
Anyways.
But they tried some stuff, so that's cool.
They tried some stuff.
Made me think about it as a DP. Well, I will say I watched a video of them build the, like, under the court stuff. So the shots when they're looking up and you're seeing people, like, run across the court and stuff. They only used, like, I swear, like, 1 or 2 shots in the movie very quickly. So it seemed like a lot of money spent for not a lot of shots. But the video where they're setting it up and you see kind of the glass court getting brought in and stuff, that's very cool. And I think could be used in another future movie. And that could be, like, a really cool segment of a future movie. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Yes.
Bye.
Watch it. Get your own opinion.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
Wow.